It's race week again. Finally. You know, it's funny when you even take 2 weeks off. It just feels it's painful. Tim, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
It's horrible. We got nothing to talk about sometimes, Adam. I tell you, it's tough.
Oh well, there wasn't anything not to talk about. That's the thing.
Yeah,
this year, the off track's been crazy this year. Tim Hauraney, Adam Wilde, nailing the apex, and I want to talk about first. Listen, this doesn't sound as exciting as perhaps it will be, but it does involve some driver movement. So hang tight. Audi is buying 100% of Sauber. Sauber's been a team forever. They almost collapsed about 10, 15 years ago. They've had some things where, you know, they're one of the smaller teams. They need more investment. And what's been very, very interesting, Tim, is how, because of the Red Bull drama, I think, how little this has really been talked about and what the implications are. But it's a really, really big deal. And it starts with Andreas Seidel.
I mean, the just how important it was for them to do all that deal, Adam. I think it's huge, and the long-term effects of it. But I also think it's big from the standpoint that they can start pouring more money into this, like way sooner than what they had previously projected to do. And I just think it's great for Formula One, but it's good for the team in general. So they now know the direction they can start going in with the car. They know the investments that they can make, and they know what they can do with their capital expenditures, which is also really important from behind the scenes and upgrading your equipment. So yeah, I think like all of that is extremely important. And, you know, you remember, I guess it was like, you know, last year, summertime, like we were getting rumors that Audi was going to, you know, pull the chute on this whole thing. And then Alessandro Aluni Bravi, who's like the team representative, came onto our show and he literally said, like, Audi's not going anywhere. They're making their investment and we'll see where else it goes. And when he meant by we'll see where else it goes, I'm guessing this is what it was.
Yeah, and so for anybody that doesn't know, because it's a complicated cost cap structure, Audi or Sauber right now, Audi soon to be, have a very interesting window here that they can take advantage of until 2026, which is of the 10 teams on the grid, they're one of the teams that can spend the most amount of money investing in their team. So whereas, you know, a Red Bull or a Mercedes can spend something like 51 million over the next 3 years, Audi can spend 63 million. And the reason that that's a big deal and the reason that the purchase means so much is because Audi obviously operates like a mega corporation that it is. Yeah. It takes a while to get things put through. And Andreas Seidel looked at it and said, listen, we're a smaller team. We need to bring more people on board. We need to get better equipment. I know they just replaced their pit stop equipment, which is a big deal, right? They've had pit stop issues this year, but like, you know, with cross-threading apparently, but frankly, like pit stops are huge and having outdated pit stop guns and things like that, it's not great. But beyond all that, Tim, they have said, and they've set pretty ambitious goals. They want to be competitive within the first 3 years of being on the track. And they won't have that budget available to them after 2026, right? After 2026, everybody is the same. Yep. So they got to take advantage of it now, which means Audi taking over now, they can spend a lot more money a lot sooner and have full oversight.
Yeah, big time. Like, I think like also like a part of all that is engine development too. How much money can they, you know, spend on their engine coming into Formula One and the rules that are behind that, which are like quite vast and complex, but essentially it kind of really leans itself to a new engine provider coming in. It allows them a little more flexibility, more time, more money that they can put into this thing to develop it and get it ready. I just, you know, it's so important, like behind the scenes of, like you had mentioned, Adam, just how much money that they can put into this project, because it doesn't make sense if you're coming in sort of on this like half-baked idea of, well, we'll just own 75% of the team and that's going to be enough to get us by and make us competitive. And I just think from the whole board, executives and Audi and all the way down, finally understood and came to a consensus like, no, we need to take this whole thing over if we really want to be competitive like a Mercedes or a Ferrari.
Well, and Tim, I think the other thing is that, when you own 75% of a thing, you have to have a business partner that's willing to spend as well. And I forget his name, the guy that owned Sauber right up until they just, until they made this agreement.
Finn Rousing.
He's not going to have the same ability to spend the way that Audi will. And frankly, you have to get him invested in spending as much, proportionally speaking, right? If we're spending $10,000, well, $2,500 has got to come from him.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like basically it's like, if I'm at the moment Finn Rousing, who owns most of this team, I'm like, look, I'm not investing any money from our side into the infrastructure, into our CapEx for this team anymore, because it doesn't make any sense for me to do that when I have Audi coming on at the time in a 70% shareholder sort of agreement. Now, when you bump that up and you get them to commit and take everything over, it changes that ball game of, okay, look, now you're basically getting everything. And so we can maybe spend some things on infrastructure here or there. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, by the time we get to this cutoff line, this date, it's all yours. You've got to take this ball and run with it and do whatever you want with it. So splitting between two separate factories, two separate divisions, right? You're going to have your engine division, which will be in Germany, and then you're going to have your car division, which is going to be building your race car down in Switzerland. And so I think that will also need to be they need to take a look at that, because I don't think you can have those two separate anymore, Adam. Like, I think, like, when we see a lot of these teams that are really, really competitive, they usually have everything all under one roof. And you look at Mercedes, like, their factories are separated a little bit, but they're both in the UK. And then if you look at, like Ferrari, everything's in Italy, everything is on site. It just makes sense that way. And so I think when you look at even like Aston Martin, and they have Honda coming on board in 2026, I would be shocked if they didn't have like a little unit or network or something set up for Honda in the backyard. Like, that's what I think is going to take for these teams to be successful moving forward. But I mean, look, it's considering where F1 is right now, like with the dominance of Verstappen and the dominance by Red Bull Racing, I think it's still a really positive sign to see that, an OEM, so like Audi, like a big manufacturer like Audi and the Volkswagen Group, they make a full commitment to Formula One. I think that's very positive for the sport. I tend to kind of look at things a little bit differently over the past, last year and then this year, being like, okay, are we going to be seeing, like, F1 is huge right now, but like, is it going to get any bigger because of, the product on the track? Is it going to grow? Is it going to keep going? And, part of me is just kind of like, maybe not this year, but, next year things could be more competitive. 2026, it's going to be totally different ball game. We have no idea what's going to happen there. And I think, like, when you're like an original, like, so when you're a big automaker, you kind of got to look at that. I think you got to look at, like, what's the landscape look like and what does it look like for the next decade. And I think for Audi, basically going in full, it's a promising sign for Formula One.
What's interesting too, Tim, is that, based on the country that you're in, there are various tax breaks and business things and incentives. And Formula One has evened out the playing field when it comes to the cost cap. It's really expensive to live in Switzerland. So if Audi is really going to do all their work out of that Swiss facility, which is, from reports, smaller and out of date, and they are building a new, I think it was it 3 million square meters or something? It's an enormous facility that they're building with Audi. Regardless, if there are higher costs of living, there is a cost of living equalization. So, one of the other sports, obviously, if you're just listening to the show, you've never heard of me before. I follow NHL and Formula One. I love both of those sports. In the NHL, there is no break for different tax brackets. In Formula One, there is. And it's to attract the type of talent that you need to be successful, even that playing field out, which I think is kind of a really, really smart idea because it goes beyond taxes. It factors in things like, what it costs for housing, what it costs to eat. I think that's a really sort of brilliant way to look at it. And I think that Sauber's got, or I guess soon to be Audi has an opportunity to kind of really take advantage of that now too. They got more money to spend than most teams, and they've got this equalization coming in. One question I think, Tim, that people are going to have is, what does this driver lineup look like? And Audi wanting to use this much in the way Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes do, which is a marketing vehicle, right? Your team wins the world championship. Very likely your stocks go up. I mean, you look at even Aston Martin. Of course, Aston Martin, McLaren, same thing. Aston Martin has been selling out lines of their cars because of the Formula One team, because of the surprise success, because it's reinvigorated the brand. If Audi really wants to do the same thing that Aston Martin has, they're going to need really good drivers. And when you look at who's available, Tim, at the top of the grid, with the exception of like a Carlos Sainz, who's going to be available to them?
Yeah, good point, man.
And you're going to a team that you're not sure about, right?
Yeah, big time. I mean, and that's like, as a driver, if you've got a window where you could potentially go to Mercedes, then it's like, well, why would you go backwards and go to Sauber, soon to be Audi? Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so I think for them, you have to look at the landscape, but you also have to really make sure that you're investing in the drivers who are going to be committed to the program. And I think that is the key thing here. And look, everyone will be like, well, drivers will drive anywhere, but it's like, top line drivers won't drive anywhere.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. And so when you look at a driver like Alex Albon, you would have to think, is he better off where he is at Williams?
Mm-hmm.
Could he get the Mercedes seat? Let's say the Mercedes seat for him gone, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say that he doesn't get that. So Alex Albon would have to sit there and say, am I better off in the position signing something that's longer term with Williams that's at the moment is on a better trajectory?
It's ascending.
Has the infrastructure that is being upgraded, has the backing from the owners that they are investing, they are committed. You don't have an engine manufacturer. That's okay, because you're going to be getting Mercedes, which will probably be very competitive regardless. Do you want to take those steps back to go to a team that could really struggle next year and then have no idea where you're going to be in 2026? It could be dead last, dead last. And so I think that is going to be a bit of a challenge for this team to get really top tier drivers. Look, I'm not saying that, the drivers they have right now aren't top tier, but let's be honest, like, how much longer does Bottas really have? Like, he's not having a great start to this season. He's super talented, no doubt, but
car sucks.
Car's not very good. It's like, how long does he really want to stick around there? Zhou Guan Yu, it's been a little difficult.
He's got a valuable thing, and I think people discount this, is the Chinese market appeal, right?
Yeah, but again, it's like,
and he's a fun guy. Like, he's just
for sure. Like, it's just kind of, I think for like Andreas Seidel is going to have a tough decision to make. It's gonna have to be, you want two drivers in there that are top of their class, that are going to help bring this program together. That's got to be Carlos Sainz. The other one's got to be Alex Albon. That's what I think. So
you think that they got to go for both? Because it's interesting today. We're hearing that Nico Hulkenberg, German driver, so there's that added aspect to it. But he's had a good start with Haas. He had a good season last year. Gunther Steiner said that's who I'd take. He could be on their radar. Part of me wonders, Tim, if Nico Hulkenberg goes next year in like 2025 with a guarantee for a 2026 seat, and then they revisit. And Nico, in all of his years, this is a guy who deserves a lot better than he's gotten. He came into into Formula One as one of those super rookies, and he just hasn't had that top end win yet. He's been on the podium, right? He's never been on a podium.
Oh.
Like this is what's so crazy about it. It's so weird about Nico Hulkenberg. He's never been on a podium.
I think I can't remember the last time like he was in contention. I have to Google that right now, actually, now that I think about it. But I think it was.
I mean, he was stuck with Renault in their worst years, right?
No, but like there was like one race. I'm trying to remember what it was. I want to say Germany 2019, 2018. Like he was in like contention for a podium and then spun off the track.
Oh no.
It's like really painful.
No. But this is the thing, right? It's a
okay.
It's kind of scary. And for, if you're going to try to fill out that driver lineup, going with a native German for a German brand makes a lot of sense.
For sure. Yeah, 100%.
And he's raced well.
I got okay, so this is from Wikipedia. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, as of 2024, Nico Hulkenberg holds the record for the most Formula One career starts without a podium finish.
Oh.
That's at 205.
Wow.
Okay, a record he claimed when he failed to finish in his 129th race, which was in 2017 Singapore Grand Prix. And in so doing past Adrian Sutil's previous record of 128.
Wow. And he's gone 100 over that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. That's so rough. Man,
not a full 100. Not a full 100, but...
Tim, imagine this, though, okay? I'm going to be your marketing guy for a second. He's in the Audi, and he gets his first podium. And let's say it's a victory, too.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Be a hell of a story.
Oh, yeah. I'd be filling everybody's inbox with that one, with PR releases.
So that's interesting. Another guy that obviously is on their radar, but I think he's probably going to be on a lot of teams' radar, is Carlos Sainz. The reason I want to bring up Carlos Sainz, obviously, Carlos Sainz's dad works with Audi on Dakar, which is, I don't know how connected that is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I do want to say, if you're Carlos Sainz and you're seeing that Perez is up and you're seeing that Lewis Hamilton is leaving, it really doesn't matter. Like, what kind of compelling plan could Audi even present you where you would go, sorry, Toto Wolff, sorry, Christian Horner, if he's still there, I'm going to Audi.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Oh, I mean, you make a great point. Like, that's what I was, kind of referring to off the top. It's really difficult to know what do they have that will entice like a driver from Ferrari to come all the way down, to the ass end of the grid. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Carlos to really push for a seat there. That's kind of, once you race for Ferrari, your value is extremely high. Once you've won with Ferrari, which he has, even higher. So you bring so much wealth and of knowledge with you to every team that you go to. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, a battle between, Mercedes and Sauber, or Sauber trying to battle Mercedes to get Carlos Sainz. That's what I think.
Who's going to have more money to spend on that seat?
I mean, I think like if you're Mercedes, you got all the money in the world, right? Like you offer him whatever you want. Like you can. Is he going to get like Lewis Hamilton type money? No, not even close. But
no.
Will he get more than what he's getting at Ferrari? He's either going to get the same amount or a bit more. And who knows how the rest of the season is going to go, Adam. Like, let's say that he comes back from appendicitis and he starts kicking a lot of ass. And it's kind of like his value goes up, his stock goes up, what he wants to be paid goes up, all that stuff goes up. So it's like, as we sit here right now, I mean, he was really great in Bahrain. He didn't get to show what he could do in Jeddah because he got appendicitis. I mean, that sucks. But at the same time, I'm basing it off of what he's done on the racetrack, and so far it's been pretty good.
By the way, I want to bring that up, that Jeddah race, because he had surgery, and then we saw him at the race literally limping around. Man, was it entirely necessary for Carlos Sainz to be on the grid? It feels like there was something intentional about that.
Oh, yeah.
Not to take away from Ollie Bierman, but more to say, I'm tough, or Don't forget about me. Like, what do you think he was doing there, honestly?
Yeah, just what you said, Adam, for sure.
Do
I would
you
do the
think that
same.
makes a difference? Do you think teams care? The guy, like, he
Um,
was in the hospital the day before.
I think like for like as a driver, I think I would care. Like I would probably, that's something like I would probably do. Now, listen, I'm not the smartest guy out there, and I've been known to make a lot of really stupid decisions, and that would probably be one of them. But yeah, like I would want to like go there and show everybody like, look, I'm tough, nothing wrong with me, I'm ready to go, put me into the seat, where's my helmet, like get my walker out, go over, get my helmet, like put it on.
But he's like, the thing is, like, he's not racing this weekend.
I don't think so. I don't. That's a tough thing to come back from. Like it took Alex Albon a long time, like until he was fully healthy and ready to rock and roll inside an F1 car. And I think, I'm not a doctor, right? I'm not a doctor, but if he's feeling fit enough to get in the car and go for it, then they'll let him go, right? But if he's not, then he won't be going. So that's just going to come down to what are the doctors saying, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if a guy, I'm looking at the driver market, obviously, in the next couple of years, and it's looking like it's going to be pretty crazy. Now, if you're Lando Norris or you're George Russell, you're probably thinking, man, might be good not to be under contract right now because I could be making a lot more money.
Yeah.
Do you think that those guys, and maybe even Charles Leclerc too, although, I mean, it's Ferrari, it's McLaren, it's Mercedes, they're amazing seats. How could you get any better? Do you think that by signing early, they left money on the table, or do you think that they're probably well compensated and it doesn't matter?
I think they're well compensated, and it really doesn't matter because I think, like, they're managers. They go in, they talk, they know kind of what's coming down the pipeline before anybody else really knows. They know what the market is. They know what the values of their drivers are, and they know what's in their contracts in terms of clauses, exit clauses, and things of that nature. And so I think for Lando, he just got, and we've discussed it on this pod, like he got that payday and he took it, and it's a good team to be at, and it's a good place for him to be in. I mean, being in McLaren, pretty much being the number one guy there at the moment until we see what Oscar Piastri does.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
but that being said, I mean, he's in a very coveted position because he can call the shots. He can get a car that is more towards his style. And then if you look at George, well, I mean, he's saying goodbye to a 7-time Formula One world champion. That team, depending on who they get in that second seat, George is going to be the guy, right? Unless they get Max Verstappen somehow, right?
Yeah, right.
George is going to be that guy. So
yeah.
George is in a very good position to, eventually really start calling the shots. His relationship with Toto Wolff is extremely strong, and that's what they've been grooming him for. They've been grooming George to take over for Lewis once he goes.
Well, I mean, it seems, man, I can't imagine. I know they're friends, but I've always wondered a couple of things. What would George and Max be like as teammates? What would Lando and Max be like as teammates? And what is their relationship, the three of them? What is it going to be when George and Lando inevitably start competing with Max for real race wins?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
It'll be awesome. But are they going to maintain the friendships the way that they are? Right? Because, there is a power imbalance there right now in terms
100%. You are 100% right.
Not that it affects their current friendship, like one's more powerful than the other, but the cars are so different.
Yes.
It's easy to be friends when it's like, well, I don't really have a chance to catch you, and I can be your friend because you're not as competitive as I am, right?
Yeah, and that whole dynamic changes when you put a championship in front of somebody because it's Formula One. You don't know how often those opportunities are going to come around, and when they do come around, like what's it going to look like? And so if you've got that moment where all three of them are in a championship fight, there's no way that these guys are like going off track, having dinner together, hanging out, really conversing all that much,
playing pickleball.
No chance. Not maybe at the end of the season, like maybe when everything is said and done, they have an off season, time to cool down. then maybe they could like rekindle all that kind of stuff. But there's just no way. It's too much chest pumping, too much like getting your chest out there. Like you are the star driver. There is nobody else better than you. And that's the mentality you got to have. And I think, when I was coming up through racing, and things are a little different now, Adam, you weren't friends with your teammate. You weren't friends with the competitors who were your same age. You guys were racing against each other. Sure, you could be cordial, but I mean, you weren't like buddies. Like you didn't text, you didn't play video games together and all that kind of stuff. And it's a little bit different now. Like that sort of culture is a tiny bit different. But once you put a championship in front of,
I'm just thinking Rosberg Hamilton, buddies forever and never the same now.
Yeah,
right.
There's no way.
Yeah. And I'm gonna push our Mercedes topic for a second because I want to quickly update on Christian Horner and the Verstappen camp. So the Horner complainant has filed a grievance with the FIA. So this person that was obviously she filed a complaint with Red Bull. They investigated it. They've now suspended her. We don't know why. We don't even really know what the accusations totally were. We think we saw the WhatsApp conversations, but we're not even sure that those are verified to be real, although nobody's denied them. There's so much going on here. So obviously, the word from Red Bull Global was that Christian Horner was exonerated and that this woman is supposed to have been suspended. So she's gone directly to the FIA with this complaint. So we'll see where they go with this. For his part, a guy who has fanned the flames is Jos Verstappen. And he said in an interview, of course, with the Dutch website, that Max doesn't like answering questions about the Red Bull saga. Now, I find that interesting because Jos has been the one who loves answering questions about it and loves pushing this. He said, it is necessary to regain calm in the team, but given the circumstances, it will take some time, I think. He said, it's part of it, but it's also necessary to calm down when it comes to the power struggle at Red Bull. What's interesting about that is Jos has been the guy fanning the flames in a lot of regards. Jos is the reason we're all wondering if Max Verstappen is going to stay at Red Bull till 2028.
It's interesting to hear those comments that, I hadn't heard them until now. And yeah, I have to agree with you. It is quite strange to hear that. In terms of like Max not wanting to talk to the media like about any of this stuff, it's I've been in the press conferences when he was asked, like during testing, during the first round, and it is nonstop, like question. And you know what, like I think for him it kind of feels like he doesn't want to be involved, like you just keep him out of it. And so why are you asking me these questions? Because I don't want to be a part of it. And so I think the sort of the straw, Adam, that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was the Helmut Marko stuff. Like Helmut saying to the media that, hey, look, I may be suspended tomorrow and I may not be here. And then the journalists throwing that back to Max after qualifying, I believe it was, and Max basically saying it's very important that Helmut stays. Like it is very important. And I think that was sort of the thing, saying like, look, this has gone far enough. If this guy's gone, then you're going to lose me too. Mm-hmm. And who knows whether that has to do with his contracts as well, Adam. Like there are some reports out there that have stated that if Helmut isn't in the team, then Max has the right to trigger an exit clause to leave the contract. So there's a lot of stuff in there that we just don't 100% know. But the fact is that I'm a big body language guy, and whenever he gets asked these questions, I mean, it really looks like it's just like, look, just leave me out of this whole thing.
Yeah, I'd rather be sim racing or real racing.
Yeah.
Apparently he was up till like 2 or 3 a.m. at least sim racing before the Jeddah Grand Prix. I just, like, and obviously the Grand Prix happens at night, right? So, he can get his sleep, but I just thought that was hilarious. He's like, you know what I'm going to do when I go home? I'm just going to race some more. And he's like Fernando Alonso in that way, right? It's like, oh, what did you do for your vacation? Did you go on a yacht? Even though he bought a yacht recently. And Fernando's like, no, I went go-karting.
But that's the thing, Adam. Like, that's actually, it's interesting that you say that, because when you look at like some of the drivers who are just incredible, like generational type talents, they don't ever stop racing or driving something, or in Max's case, sim racing is that type of, I'm always driving, I'm always on the sim. And I've actually talked to him about that. I've sat down and interviewed him and being like, look, like, do you get something from this? And he does. Like, he keeps the skills sharp, he keeps the rhythm of one lap quality pace sharp, he keeps all those little tiny things just ticking those boxes, always doing it, getting better. And like, you look at a driver like Fernando Alonso, he does the exact same thing. Alonso is always racing something, he's always at a racetrack, he's always driving, and he's always keeping his skills finely tuned, finely sharp. And yep. I find with like the newer generation of drivers starting to come into Formula One or coming into racing, a lot of them do that too. A lot of them just don't ever really turn it off. They don't ever really stop. They're always doing something. And I think obviously it's a lot different now than when I was racing, because when I was racing, we didn't have sims. We didn't, have all this great stuff. We went to the go-kart track and we pounded around in our carts, and that was it, right? To keep the skills sharp. But with like sim racing, esports, all that stuff, I think that has really elevated the level of driver that we see now.
Tim, going into the Australian Grand Prix, and I want to talk about the track in a second, it seems as though Mercedes' car is still a problem, and it seems to be the back end again. Lewis and George both saying that they don't have confidence in the back end of this car. They're in a fight right now with McLaren. They're currently fourth, which is well below what Mercedes would expect of itself. They were first place for years and years and years, second the last two. What do you think they do to fix that before the end of the season? Do you think that's a problem that's correctable this year, or is that something the drivers are going to have to manage?
No, I think it is something that is correctable. It has a lot to do with downforce, getting more downforce put onto the car, and how are they working with the ride height of the car. Now, I mean, for those listening who don't really know, ride height is essentially when car and ground sort of meet. What is the space between ground to car? There is a limit to which these teams can get the car to the ground, but that's where all the performance is. It's getting the car as close to the ground as you can without causing porpoising. So when the car stalls out, so you have air traveling underneath and the car gets too low to the ground, it chokes the air off, the car pops up, and then you have that happening all the way down a straightaway, and that's called porpoising. Now, the Mercedes does appear to have a tiny bit of that, especially in the rear of the car. And so I think, Adam, a lot of that is just experimenting, running simulations. How low can they have this thing to the ground? And then what is the racetrack providing you with? Like, is it bumpy? Because if the track has a lot of bumps in it, it will affect where you can run the car. Because once you start bottoming out even more, it just kind of makes that problem like worse. And that's essentially like a watered down version of all of it, Adam.
Yeah. Well, and I'm wondering, like, transitioning that into the Australian Grand Prix, in terms of the way the track is, would you rate it as one of the more smooth or bumpy tracks?
Well, it went through a resurfacing phase not too long ago, and then while doing that, they got rid of one of the corners to kind of turn it into more of a longer straightaway, so there could be a little more passing opportunity. For the most part, it's not too bumpy, even though it is a semi-street circuit, bit of a road course, through a park type deal. It's interesting that way. I think when we we look at it, it's fairly smooth. The asphalt, from what I'm told, is not that abrasive. I mean, it's not like Jeddah's surface, it's like really good, and it's not like Bahrain's surface, which is very abrasive. It's kind of, it's fairly good on the tires, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. But I like the track. Like it's quick, it's fast. There are now some passing opportunities there, which in the past we would wake up, like for us, right? We're watching this thing at 1 a.m. and it's like it's follow the leader, and we're all just falling asleep at like 2 a.m. and like, come on, give us a show here. Last year's race was really good. I mean, I really liked it.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a good race this year.
Whose car do you think it'll benefit the most?
I mean, obviously, go with Red Bull first up, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. Sorry, I feel like every question should start with "other than Red Bull." We get,
other than Red Bull, yeah. I think Ferrari can be strong here. I think I'll be interested to see what Mercedes has done during this downtime, because James Allison has said, and Andrew Shovlin as well, two of the key guys who've worked on this car, the W15. They're going to go back to the factory last week, try and figure out what more can they discover with the car with their simulation tools, and then let's see what they can do with it in Australia. That's the thing with Mercedes, right? You can never just count them out. And just championship pedigree in them just always keeps them, right there as the fourth, third, second fastest team. And I think they're going to ping pong throughout that. But I honestly have to say Ferrari is probably going to be the second fastest team, because I think they are the only team that are going to be able to really challenge Red Bull eventually.
Okay. All right.
How do you watch the race, Adam? Like, because it's like 1 a.m, right? Like, do you PVR it and then like watch it the next day? Like, how do you do it?
Well, I know TSN reruns it in the morning. Yep. It'll depend on how my Friday night goes, because I'm going to be at the family cottage the next 2 weekends, and so usually sometimes the nights can get a little late there. So I might just stay up and watch it and then go to bed.
All right.
We'll see. If not, I'll just have to wake up and watch it on TSN time, because it's a lot easier that way.
Yeah.
The midnight races are kind of crazy, but you know what?
Yeah, they're hard.
Tim, now that we're doing this show, maybe I need to be staying up and watching it in real time. I can't. That's the thing, is like when you have a race that goes overnight in your country, you wake up and you're like, oh, I can't go on Twitter, I can't go on Instagram, I can't look at anything. I can't talk to anyone or look at any of my text messages until I watch what happens, right? Because oftentimes, even around the office here, the three or four of us will, in our F1 group chat, will be like commenting on things that happen, and it's like, oh no, this is gonna spoil it for me.
I have to like get onto a bit of the time zone that the F1 travels to, so it's like, for me, sometimes I get to, like, I'll sleep until. I'll try and sleep till like maybe 12 p.m., 1 p.m., and then kind of be up until 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning, and then try to get 5 hours sleep if I can. And then just coffee, man, just espresso,
just coffee,
all the caffeine I can fit into my veins. Like, it's just like I'm sweating it out, like, just to stay awake for this thing. And so that's usually how I kind of have to go about tackling it. But, I kind of miss Australia being the first race of the season, to be honest with you. I really did. There was just something about it. It's like, I guess it's just the nostalgia of it all, right? But I mean, it's different now. That's all different now. But no, it's a great race. I really do love this race. I really do.
Lastly, there will be two Aussies at the race. That would be Piastri and Riccardo. Riccardo has come under a lot of pressure since Jeddah. Obviously, there was the week 1 switch with Yuki, and the thought was Daniel was faster, and it was looking like Daniel was faster at that point. He certainly wasn't fast in Jeddah. There's been a lot of conversation about it. Even Helmut Marko saying he's got to give us more. What are you looking for Daniel Ricciardo this weekend?
Oh, I mean, like we talked about before on our last podcast, like, he definitely does have to do more. It isn't looking good for Daniel at the moment. Now, he can turn that around. This could be the place that he does it. And from whatever he learned from Jeddah, apparently was able to figure some stuff out with the car. So whatever he's able to do there, he's definitely going to have to start implementing that in the next upcoming races. I mean, because when you got Helmut Marko coming out saying stuff like that, then you're you're kind of treading on that thin ice, right, Adam? Like it's
It's the same as Nick DeVries last year, and I just wonder, Tim, if they don't
get
Liam
Lawson waiting there, right?
I was just gonna say, is it possible that we'll open it up to both drivers? Like, let's say Yuki has a bad next 3 weeks. You don't know, right? And then he's under fire. Is it possible this year that Red Bull do the same thing and Liam Lawson takes over mid-season for either one of those guys?
Yeah, anything is possible with that team and that program. You just never know. It's like a coin flip when drivers are struggling. You don't know how long they're going to last. I think that's a bit of a shame with the younger drivers, Adam, because for the younger drivers, it just need that experience. You need more time in the car. You need a little bit longer. But when you're an experienced driver like Daniel Ricciardo, and look, I like Daniel Ricciardo a lot, and I really, I hope he's in Formula One. I would love to see him at the big team back again, going up against Max. I would love to see that. But when you're a driver of his caliber, and if the struggles continue, I mean, it's just not good. That is not good.
No, and I'm dying for that storyline. But he's got to earn that. And that's the thing with Red Bull, is everything is earned, every inch.
Exactly. So
we'll see what happens. So Tim, we'll catch up a little later this week and do a little bit more of a deeper preview on this one, but looking forward to it. And I'm thank God it's race week, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it, man.